Welcome. My name is Clarissa. I run Papergang Theatre, and I've had the absolute pleasure to work with the Asian Pirate Musical team. I'll let the team introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Nemo Martin. I use they, them. I am a writer and podcast producer, and I would also helped produce this and have been writing on Asian Pirate Musical.
Hi, I'm Zhui Ning. I use she, they pronouns. I'm a theatre director, writer, and editor. And for APM, helping with producing as well as doing writing and general editing, collaborating.
Hello, my name's Jade, she, her pronouns. In APM, I'm the music director, composer, and performer. Outside of APM, I am a game music composer and audio generalist.
Hiya, I'm Frey. I use he, him pronouns. In APM, I've been writing and kind of creating with everyone else. And outside of APM, I'm a dramaturg, writer, and theatre reviewer.
Hi, I'm Sarita, she, her pronouns. In APM, I've been a composer and a musician and a bit of dabbling and lyricist. And outside of APM, I'm a production director for a consultancy agency that specializes in diversity and inclusion.
Hi, I'm Zana. Inside of APM, I've been a sound designer and also songwriting, and I play one of the characters in the Tsar. And outside of APM, I am a sound designer, musician, and I also write as well.
Thanks, team. You have been working on an Arts Council England supported project called APM in Lockdown, and this is a sort of like interview evaluation. And one of the questions, well, the first question I'd like to ask you is, what were your ambitions and goals entering into this particular development process?
I realized that I should have looked at the questions before we started the meeting.
It's all going very well.
Well, it's all right. So very, very broadly speaking, at the top of this process, we've just come up from our showcase at Vault Festival, where we showed an excerpt of Act 1 of Asian Pirate Musical. And going into APM in Lockdown, broadly, we were thinking about things like, firstly, having a complete book where we've written all the scenes, all the acts, we know roughly the character arc and where the story is going to end. We were also looking to build on the material that we made for Vault, musically and dramaturgically, and how we can push those boundaries further, as well as to experiment more with like the collaborative process. We have a flat, non-hierarchical way of working, and we wanted to sort of look at what that means when we are not rushing for like the Vault creation deadline.
Yeah, thank you. For those who haven't really been reading up on APM, can somebody give a summary of, since you've been working from beginning, middle, and end?
So Asian Pirate Musical, in summary, is a new musical by the six of us, which is, and the narrative is essentially about queer Asian pirates from history and also outer space. We look at characters from the 14th century, the 19th century, 21st century, and 24th century, as they're all essentially stuck on a boat together in the 21st century and have to learn how to navigate that obstacle.
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry, in the first question, going back to the first question, when I asked about ambitions and goals, one of the things you mentioned was working in a non-hierarchical way. I mean, to what extent do you feel like you fulfilled that ambition?
I think it was hard for us because, especially with something like an Arts Council grant, where there is kind of a pressure to put something out at the end, it very much became the thing of like, we were still working to a brief, which meant that some of us had to put the brief out there and others had to work towards it, mostly because there were deadlines and stuff. And I think we all come from an industry that is very much the kind of thing where usually you will have a book writer or a lyricist having the idea and then giving it to a composer, and never really the other way around. And we did want to try and mess with that a little, and we were trying to give a lot of like freedom with how we did this. I think we did, in a lot of ways, I think that we did do a non-hierarchical structure with the six of us. I think that there was back and forth, and I think that it wasn't like, this is our word and you're going to do it. You're going to work to our brief. And but I think that we could still have a lot of room to improve with literally just content generation and starting maybe from music and working backwards towards lyrics or something like that to give more chances for other people. But that was coming from my side, who has is not a composer.
Yeah. I mean, Jade, Sarita, do you want to talk a bit more, so XANA, even talk about like the music side? How was it for you, the process?
Okay. Yeah. So in the past, I've dabbled in songwriting, but normally I would compose the music and the lyrics alongside each other. So for me personally, it was quite interesting to compose music to lyrics that were already written. One thing that was really useful in this sort of flat hierarchy is that if I felt that lyrics didn't quite sort of fit the song, so the music that I started composing, I could tweak that a bit to sort of match the sort of musical ideas that I had. So that was really useful, rather than being like, I have to make sure that the music conforms entirely to the lyrics. So we did have a bit of back and forth in that sense. So don't know where the sentence is going. Full stop.
Is that working like the music towards the lyrics? Is that a very uncommon practice? Is that can somebody enlighten me on that?
I think for music, it's fairly normal because you have the lyrics first and then you write the music to it. And like in hobbyist bands, you usually write them both together. Though it isn't uncommon actually for someone to approach with like a riff or like a chord progression, and for people to build lyrics on top of that. But I think for specifically musical theater, it is more normal for the lyrics to come first.
That's quite. Oh, Zana, you first.
I was going to say, I actually also found the process of making the music quite flexible, just because we tried different approaches to making it. And sometimes it was the lyrics are already here. I don't know what music. Okay, let's just pull out some instruments. Let's hum, and then something would come up. Or it'd be like, oh, we're stuck on this song, don't know what to do. And then like within 10 minutes, there's an entire song written, and then there are like little chords and stuff to go with it. And I found that actually really something to look forward to, because often in theatre processes, you come in to do a specific thing, and that's the place where you're supposed to sit. So you don't get to kind of inform the narrative or the context and things that are deeper than what you've kind of come in to do. So it's been really nice to kind of find out for myself as well in the process that I really love songwriting. Like, I know I love songwriting anyway because I'm a musician outside of this, but songwriting for musicals, I really found that like I got really excited by the prospect, almost too obsessed with writing songs. Sometimes, like, is there more songs that need to be written? But I think like having a structure like this it also encourages the people, I guess, in the project to be better designers, makers, creators, writers, and to also go into places that they maybe wouldn't have done before. Like, I know, Jade, you were doing singing on a lot of the stuff, and that's not something that you were doing before. And it's like, that gives people confidence that it's like, even though you specialize in one thing, you still have the ability to explore other things as well. And I know, like, when you have an institutional funding body like the Arts Council, it's encouraging. We need to know what your hierarchy is, so we know who's getting paid what, and we know whose voice is valued in this structure the most. And I didn't really feel that way. I felt like it was like, actually, if I said in a story, if a scene was happening before a song and it didn't make sense, I could go and say, hey, everyone who's writing the dialogue, I just noticed something, and like I think it's a red flag. we should do something about it. So yeah, I think for me, like, that process has been really inviting.
I just wanted to tag on to that while in there are people like who put words and dialogues on the story, and people who put music on the story itself as like an idea is essentially shared between all of us. And I just want to shout out XANA, who put in the idea for the last act of the musical, after which every single scene that came out of Act 3 is basically from your idea about the protest song and about the protesters under the rake, and it literally would not have existed without that idea. So like all the words in the end also come back to the ideas that we all sort of pull in.
Nemo, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to say as well, like it was the first time that I'd written with other people, and I include writing as like Zhui was saying about like not just the physical writing, but writing with other people, and it was so freeing to be able to have 5 other opinions on something, because I think that last act was something that we knew exactly what the ending was going to be from the beginning, and we knew like what most of the story beats were, and we were quite clear on what the character arcs were going to be. But it's such a like conceptual story, I guess, and I usually get very stuck on things like that, and it was very good to be able to just like spew out a lot of like things, and for all of us to sit there and be like, no. No.
Or sometimes yes.
Yeah, sometimes yes, which was really great, and we did get a full story out, so that was great.
Frey, yes.
I just wanted to quickly say that I think that it was also great that this was explicitly a continuing development phase of something which we'd already begun together. We had some familiarity of working with each other in the context of this project, and could take that and what we knew so far about the way that we worked with these people and our strengths and everything, and push those a bit further in a slightly different way in this period, which was really cool.
Great, that actually allows. Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
just
Yeah, no,
before
go on.
I forget, just ditto what everyone has said, and extra shout out that working with everyone has just been a joy, because it was a really safe space to also say that you're uncomfortable with doing XYZ, or you want to experiment with whatever, but also like, I don't know if it's going to work, and there is that space to kind of explore and just give it a go, and then just see what happens. Because when you're working in the industry, like, there is not like time, funding, or enough people to give that go ahead just to like take that risk. So that's what I really appreciate about working with this group, is like there is that element of it is okay to take that risk and give things a go as well, and obviously getting really good, valuable feedback from it.
That's great. I mean, actually, that ties in with what my next question was going to be. You've
Nice.
kind of worked together, like previously, or like when I say previously, pre-pandemic. Now you had to work as a collective, mostly digital, if not all digital. What was that like? Does anyone want to reflect on digital collaboration? Yes, Anna.
I would say in the beginning it's probably really difficult, just because of the context and what we live in right now. So you're just wildly exhausted being on the computer all the time and wanting to generate so much energy and spirit into this project, but also remembering the feeling of what it's like to be in the room with each other, and like when it's organically feeding off of each other's energy in the space. So it's trying to generate that over Zoom can sometimes be really difficult. And I know musically as well, sound is really hard to translate online. Like you can like having a jam with the music team was sometimes really lovely, because you could, if it was really simple, it could be executed really well if it was just humming a few instruments. But if we were trying to stay in sync with each other, or like it was all over the place because it was constantly cutting out and not allowing us to kind of flow actually. So sometimes you'd have to break up the process in which you would normally work and send each other stems or WhatsApp voice calls and be like, so I've been thinking about a song, and it goes and then Jay's like, okay, and so it's like, okay guys, actually I also think we should add this thing, and then it's like, okay, that's the song. So like it really breaks up the process of how you would normally work, and it really forces you to adapt. So sometimes I was like, actually this is fun being able to work in a different way, and other times I was like, I also miss being in Juning's living room in Waterloo, and like in that really small room, all of us having rehearsals, and me constantly asking, what time are we ordering bubble tea? That's all I kind of want to know. I don't care about the rehearsal. I just want to know what time we're ordering bubble tea. And I think you miss that actually, because a part of theatre is being in that space with people and sharing that physicality, and I guess that gets removed in this context.
I have to say, as the writer, it was like completely a different experience. It was very good to be like, we're all on the same Google document, and we're all going to start typing. And I mean, quite a few times Ning and I would be logged in as the same Google account, and we'd just be writing, and it was very like, it was almost strangely symbiotic how often we would type the exact same words at the same time on a document. And I mean, yeah, for us it was so we would meet every Friday on Skype to give ourselves a change of pace, so we weren't on Zoom. And we would talk for 3 hours, and then we would go and have a homework and write a scene. So we all kind of like wrote a scene each, and then read it the next week, and then either edited someone else's scene or started writing a new scene. So for me, it was quite freeing to be able to just be like, I want to write this scene, and I absolutely don't want to write this scene, and none of you can do anything about it, and I can write on my own time. And it also gave me something to do every Friday, and reminded me that there were weeks and days and hours in the day. So yeah, but I also did find it frustrating at times that I would have to listen to my friends struggling to sing over Skype, and wishing that I could be in that room and to like hear it and sort of be able to comment on it as well, because it's also really hard to be able to like comment on music when it's online, and to be like, well, you know, it sounded like hard, but I don't know how to describe it, because I can't just like point at the instrument, or I can't like, I have no idea. Like words would fail me quite often over digital. So
Thank you. Apart from the digital struggles, are there any like other things, if you're doing this process, if you as a collective are like, going forwards, I would like to improve on that, or you know, whether that is, let's not do it on Zoom, or let's not do it digitally. Is there anything else you kind of reflect on and think, well, if I could do things a little bit differently, this is what I do? Or you don't even have to have answers, you know.
Not necessarily differently in the sense of I want to like turn back time and completely like change the way we work, but I think we've tried several ways of working within the lockdown period. Quite a few, at least from my perspective, which is idea and text based into music. And I think we've tried that, and it, to a certain extent, it does work, and it's interesting to see how like the music people have sort of restructured stuff based on what we have discussed and what we have put down on the page. And something I'd like to explore is to maybe do that story discussion, and then maybe like, let's say Jade comes up with 16 bars of a jingle, and then I can write a scene based off the 16 bars of a jingle, rather than Jade writing the song based off of like the scene that I wrote. So just an inversion of that. I don't think it's a sort of one is better than the other, but I think we can make different discoveries based off of like different angles of approaches. And we're still in a phase where that sort of discovery, I think, is really worthwhile to do.
Yes,
and from a music perspective, kind of going off of what Nemo said earlier about the importance of live feedback. So because before, when we could all be in a room together, you could just play something and have someone say, oh, that's good as a starting point, but you could maybe change this thing. And I found that it was hard to replicate that online because you just be like, oh, here's what I've done so far, and then you got this message back and forth. Whereas I think there's especially with music, there's something about just kind of talking it through and kind of being able to hum things live, kind of like what's honestly about just humming to your phone. But when it was really very late in the process when I realized that Jade suggested like online workshop. So we played through let's say a song, and then she could play different things. But I think rather than just saying I have to fix it all right now in front of you, and it's weird and it's like this weird thing, I could just be like, cool, can I call you back in like 20 minutes? Let me just apply this and then come back. So in some ways it was an improvement in that in real life, you couldn't necessarily fix it that quickly, without feeling the pressure of, oh, I have to do it right now quickly. Otherwise I'm wasting her time because she's sitting here right now. So almost having that remote thing reminded me that you could just be like, cool, let me just take 20 minutes, apply your feedback, come back to you, and then we can discuss this new version and keep sort of this feedback loop going. So I think applying that generally of being intentional with time, I suppose, would be nice.
I think another process which we've only just started talking about was when we were writing like a duet songs, was like, say like if Sarita wrote music based on one character's voicings, and then we'll pass the stems over to me, and then I could write like the next bit, and like we can go really further in depth into the whole composing process just on the music side, rather than having one person lead one song. We can definitely make it a bit more integrated. So for example, with like big ensemble type, all the characters are singing, and then it's just like, right, cool, how backwards and forwards could we potentially make this to make it interesting, and where could that lead us in terms of like, oh, I would never thought of going in this particular chord direction or whatever. So I think it's a process that it was still really good that we all went through, but it's only it's a bit sad that only then like, oh, this is a cool process which we could have done earlier, but that particular time has passed, so we need to apply it to the next song that we workshop or something.
Yeah. Anyone else? So one of the things that I heard was the like almost like a sort of a pressure. Now this was like Arts Council funded, and just to give that a bit of context, Papergang Theatre has had applied for the emergency funds for this project. And for me as a producer, I would just like to know if that kind of pressure, is that good pressure? Is that bad pressure? We talk about artist well-being. I feel like I've been quite hands-off because you have been quite you've established yourself as a collective. I felt you were definitely already on the way of working together. But yeah, I just wondered if funding suddenly changes things, and whether there's anything that I could have done maybe more to support. And that's a very like open, and I would appreciate an honest answer on this.
I mean, I can only really speak for myself to a certain extent, because I am very guilty of like not working unless I have deadlines. And to be fair, the last thing we did with Vault, like the only reason that Asian Pirate Musical really exists now is because Zhui, Ning and I met. We had one dinner. They told me about an idea, and I was like, great, let's put an application in for Vault Festival. And then we got the application accepted, and we were like, oh fuck, we actually have to make this. And so I'm very good at convincing other people to do things very quickly with me. So I personally like a good pressure of a deadline. And with something like Arts Council, where we were like, okay, there's 6 months, what are we gonna do with it? For me, that did feel like a good thing. And also we were being paid, which is excellent. I think that it sort of goes in with your last question as well, of like, how would we have done things better? And I think part of that is like really hammering what it means to put content out, especially from the beginning, and to get everyone on the exact same page, and to, I think, maybe include everyone. So we kind of trying to lighten the load on other people. We had producer meetings that was just you, Clarissa, Jade, Zhui, Ning, and me. And I feel like we probably should have done those with everyone, just so that everyone was on the exact same page all the time as well, especially with the like content producing for songs and stuff, because I think a lot of stuff did get missed in between, like us making this like timeline that we made and then being like, so we're going to make a song. And then I feel like I felt kind of like we were leaving people behind, especially in conversations when we were like, oh, we were supposed to put this song out. And then people were like, oh, I didn't realize that we were even going to put this song out. And that's partially on like me for not like communicating properly and, processes. But I do think that, something to develop on is just including more people and trusting that people, if they don't have the time to do it, that they can say no to the meeting themselves.
Right,
Wow, Nemo.
Nemo is excellent at saying no to things.
But I think on top of all of that, which I concur with, is just an acknowledgement that we are all working in pandemic era now, and that's a vastly different landscape from anything that any of us have worked with. And like for me as well, I'm working across time zones, and it's actually, and after the clock turned back, I realized it's actually become much more difficult to work to the UK time zones I was working with before, just because like my mind is not in the same place at midnight as it would be if it was like a 5 p.m. meeting. So like there are just a lot of different elements to working remotely, working under like the sort of social political pressures that we have been doing, as well as a project like this, which is both in a completely like there's a lot of meaning and a lot of good in it on a professional level, but also I think everything that is truly good creatively also takes like a personal cost out of you, and a lot of things in the world now takes a lot of personal cost out of us already that we can't quantify very well, and all of that adds up together is like sort of it's all stuff that we just have to keep navigating and being clear with each other about as we like keep working on the project.
Yeah, there was one song, and you can kind of hear echoes of it in the protest song that we just released. But there's another song which we haven't released, which really, so XANA wrote the lyrics for. And there's one line which I think is like "Red Sky Peacefully" or something like that. And it's sort of about climate change, and it's about climate emergency rather, and about caring for the planet and caring for in a difficult time. And as much as we say that Asian Pirate Musical is a fun romp about pirates, and like found family and bonding and queerness, and like now most of the characters are trans or non-binary or gender non-conforming, and like all these things, it really is also something that I have definitely used as an outlet for despair quite a lot. And that like mental puzzle of like, how can you keep up hope when everything around you is like institutionally against you, and like there are just so many big things. And reading the lyrics of the other writers and being like really like profoundly moved by the stuff that is being produced. And then when the protest song was made and like hearing that as well, it's like, you can't, you can't create in a vacuum, and technically all the stuff in it is fictional to a degree, but it was so like also cathartic in a way to have this space to like experiment with anger as well, and experiment with like lyrics that were about wanting to give up hope but like forcing yourself not to and stuff like that. So yeah, I found it like very healing in a way as well, to have this collective of people to work with, to make things that hopefully other people can listen to as well, and to be like, oh shit, like I am also inspired to keep moving one more day, because I think that is most of what we can do right now. Yeah.
Very true. Talking about this, talking about processes, as a group, I was just wondering, how do you finished your book as a group? How do you know that it's finished? Yeah. That's like congratulations, well done. But how do you know who is going right, guys? We're there.
It's not. I'll just say it first. Sorry, I always.
A good chunk has been done.
Finished.
To our credit.
It is not like, to me, it is never going to be finished until it's either like in like a cast album or on stage, and we've locked that as like that's the performance that's happening every night, and that's the not necessarily the end, but the definitive book. If we would say like now, I would say like congrats, we have finished a first draft of this book. So we have kind of all the scenes assembled, we've got kind of all the words, but this is all like subject to change and to play and to complete experimentation up until the point when like it becomes a production.
Yeah. And plus we have like really wild goals of like there's got to be a historical drama of it, like a TV show. There's got to be like a cartoon version, maybe possibly an anime. There's got to be like an audio play. It's got to play on a ship. Perhaps that ship is also on an ocean. Who knows? Like we have so many like, I guess, different pathways where it can go. It's definitely electric when it's a live piece, but I think it has such richness in the content and the music to also extend into all these other places. But I would totally agree. I definitely don't feel like it's finished. I'm like, there are so many other nuances in the characters that still need to be explored, like the understanding of space travel as well, and more of the science in that, the racial context of the characters as well. Like all of these things play a part, I think. Yeah, so it's always I think it'll be a process of going back to it and being like, so we did the first draft, what are we killing and what are we keeping?
Hey, did you want to add something?
Oh, I was just going to say, probably from to answer your question quite practically, I think for now we have a version which does what we spoke about in earlier stages of this development phase as what we needed this version to do, and it took us a while to work out how we were going to plot what happened in this full version of the musical, but then we worked out what we wanted to happen, and then it was a case of making sure that it was happening and what we were writing. And after we basically couldn't really look at it anymore, and it was also doing all of those things, then we kind of felt like, yes, this is for now a version. And yeah, it means that it's still very much open to whatever else we want to do with it, and that's really exciting.
We also had a spreadsheet. That's all I cared about the entire time, was that we had a spreadsheet that had every single scene, and it was color coordinated, and it was like in progress, and it had so many different colors on it, and like it was finished for me when I could change all of the colors to green. And I was like, I don't give a shit if I'm just changing it to green because we're desperate and we need to submit something because we're like on the last week. Like it's green and that it's done.
Great. Spreadsheet. Everybody loves a spreadsheet. Question then, as a last question, because you all alluded to this. What is next? What would you like to achieve with this project? Let's kind of break that down. Let's have like a short term, a medium, and long term. when long term is like, trying to take over the world, clearly. Does anyone want to start me off? Short term.
I mean, from a more personal perspective,
Yeah.
I guess short term is finishing all the songs. So while the first draft of the book's been done, we're still in the process of composing all the songs for those. So that would be the immediate thing. Midterm goal, more of a personal agenda, is like a B-side album where all the songs are, redone in different styles, which we tried a bit for Without You, which for the Vaults we did more boy band style. And during lockdown, if my connection cuts at any point, I'm sorry. And then for lockdown, try to kind of instrumental version of it. So messing around with different versions of the songs, and maybe as a result of that, having new ideas for the musical would be really interesting. And then again, long term is, how many different variations. I really do love the idea of APM ownership. So that's my vote for that.
Arts Council doesn't know what's going to hit them.
My short term, at least, we kind of identified that the things that we want to do, like Sarita said, was to compose the rest of the songs, but that we also identified while we were writing that there were a lot of research that we still wanted to do about it, especially about the history of the area that we're writing about, very specifically about the trade between Africa and Asia in the 19th century, the 14th century to the 19th century. That's not very specific, that's a lot of years, but we do need to do a lot of research in that kind of thing, because I think even us who try really hard to understand the world still live in a world where we have been educated in a certain way and still carry ideas of what the past looked like. And so wanting to really look at what the past did look like and dispel our prejudices from even that angle, which is something that did very actually happen within our group anyway. And so the more that we can educate ourselves, the more we can prevent future things from happening. So yes, that's short-term goal. 2 mid-term goal, really, finishing the actual musical. Big-term goal, making a huge podcast production, touring every country, fireworks on stage. We have our own boat. We have multiple boats. We have a fleet of boats. Yeah, I'm very excited for taking over the world.
I'm getting the producer sweats. It's okay, don't worry. Anyone else like to reflect or like to share what they would like to achieve with this?
I think just to add on to a bit of the information research and building, Nemo talked quite a bit about the historical research that we have to do, which actually to me is the easier bit of research, because there's existing work that we can refer to, and it's a matter of us going through them, digesting it, and kind of putting together the pack of what is relevant to us and what we can understand from existing sources, which are themselves also biased in various ways. The difficult part for me is the tackling of the futures that we're also looking at, because this future both happens in the near future of 21st century Earth, as well as the distant future of space travel. And to me, that is still, we have had this conversation and built a bit of a space world, but it's still quite nebulous to me. And I feel like we can try various different exercises and sort of brainstorming research things for us to build that with more clarity for ourselves, because it's both for us to be able to be really specific with it in the story, but I think it's also useful as a way of, so I'm going into my SFF lecturing here of this is how we imagine alternate futures for ourselves by writing them into existence, which is still true and completely valid. So these are all things I think to build. It's things to clarify in the short term, but it has ripple effects towards the long term as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? No, that's great. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing. Oh, wait, yes, Sana.
I just remembered something. it would be great to be able to have the show in the future be in places that also confront the I suppose the historical history around trade and ships and colonialism within this country. Like, and I immediately think of like the Cutty's arc, where I would love to have the show like on the Cutty's arc and basically say, yeah, you know, you stole a bunch of shit and you also harmed a load of people. And here's this pirate musical that is like also connected to the history of some of the artifacts and stories that is actually on the historical ship of the Cutty's arc. And I think as well, like, of the future of it, of what both Nemo and Ning were saying about the research and how to explore more of that connection and that awareness around our potentially shared histories, that there are more shared histories and the things that divide us, and where does that come from. And also, like, I suppose also exploring like how Nazar fits within the context of that, but also myself as like within the context of the team as well, like how we are together continuing to have conversations and stuff like that feel really uncomfortable, but that there's space for it always, because it's, I think, sometimes really rare to be in situations where you can confront uncomfortability and actually become aware of it and then action upon it in different ways as well. And I feel like for the future of how we approach things as well, that that's something that will happen more and more, but will happen with a regularity and an ease that it's like, oh yeah, it's not a thing to talk about stuff like this actually, because it comes up and we do talk about it openly, or or any other topics around like things that we intersect with, but also things that we don't. And like, yeah, I think as well, having the music in so many different forms and having different types of actors singing on it. And I was also thinking about how we would have something like a podcast and we could invite people to like talk about the show and the history that's connected to it, but also have special singing episodes as well. So but yeah, I think the future of the musical is one that's about doing something that people have never seen before but know that they've always wanted.
Yeah.
Kind of, can I just jump off that very quickly?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And then Frey.
Kind of going off from what XANA just said, I think the narrative of the musical is simultaneously, I think, extremely epic in scale and very broad in like the times that we consider, but also in a way very specific because it emerges out of us, the team, as a very specific set of experiences. And one of the things I've been thinking about is like our interrogation of the characters that we have chosen to inhabit this story. I feel that in particular, like very strongly because of this kind of pull between diaspora and Southland. And there's a kind of, which I'm both. And simultaneously, I've chosen deliberately to set it in a specific region of Southeast Asia. And yet I'm like, we are inviting these East Asian characters from like north of Southeast Asia into this story. And I've been doing like extra research where I'm like, oh, there are other Southeast Asian pirates, which I did not know before, but I knew as a result of this project. Where do all these different people sort of like fit in to this story? I think one of the things to remember is that as epic a scale as APM is, like in itself, this particular version of the story is not, it cannot be all things to all people at all times. And it can only be for very specific things, and people can take from it what they want, but it emerges out of these specific experiences. And we don't need it to be everything to everybody, but they can be like how everyone is suggesting, like these spin-off ideas, and hopefully both within us creating spin-off ideas and inviting other people into our space. The other people can take inspiration from what we have done and have their own spin-off ideas. And then we can have it's not like a scarcity mindset, it's an abundance mindset. We can all have different bits of it, and then it will all be great together. And it's not a matter of us scrabbling, but we have to be, I think, aware of all these dynamics that exist and underlay and inform the decisions, that the artistic and creative decisions that we are making. And that's something that at least I myself personally, I have to sort of repeatedly go back and think about and unfold and repackage and rebuild all the time. Frey.
Thank you. Yeah, Frey.
I just wanted to say something to kind of quickly tie together both XANA and Ning's points, which is that we've explicitly chosen to focus on pirates who have become in multiple cultures around the world kind of the poster children of deviance, basically, and outcasts. And we have been, as Nemo mentioned earlier, quite explicit about the fact that this is a gender non-conforming, trans, non-binary, heavily featuring musical. And that as we talk about the different possibilities for what Asian pirate musical might become and look like and involve, and especially when we think as well about what casting might involve and what specific details are needed for characters to be recognized as these characters, and what might be up for debate and might change depending on who is involved with creating the next version of whatever this bit of APM is, or whoever is involved with playing this version of this character in APM and whatever. I think it's we're aware that we have conversations that can be had about what changes with characters and what stays the same, and what that says about our story when these things change or stay the same with regards to gender identity, which is obviously inextricable from also the racial identity of these characters, and what it is that we want to say about all of that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Jade.
Lastly, I think from the music composing point of view, it's also just being very aware that we are approaching the music writing process from a Western music education point of view. And while I do have some knowledge and education in Indonesian gamelan, I'm very aware that it's just very concentrated to say Javanese gamelan, but obviously there are different types of gamelan outside of that. And then if you take in the other local traditional music history within just Indonesia, that's already just a pure focus. So I'm not quite sure what my point is, but it's just saying yeah, there are other different types of traditional music within the Southeast Asia area. And I think maybe a mid to long-term goal for myself personally is try to just still continue expanding my knowledge and awareness of that area. And, it's not just, this specific part in history, there's a long traditional history, then obviously with colonialization, that also has an impact on the music and how that should reflect within this music writing process. So yeah, just continue researching and trying to approach the source material as authentically as possible, really. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just really excited about your next phase. I was already excited about this phase. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and reflections. I'm looking forward to what's coming next. Keep us all updated. I'll speak to you soon. I'm going to finish the recording.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is a musical about 6 pirates from across time. 5 pirates. Jesus Christ. That's why I'm editing it. I said 6 and I was like, that's wrong, but I'm going to power through. Cool. Take 2. It is a musical about 5 pirates from across time. 2 from the 24th century, 23rd century. God, Jesus Christ. Someone else needs to do this because I cannot, obviously.